Some empires vanish quietly. Others crumble with noise so loud it shakes centuries. But a few disappear in ways that leave more questions than answers. And somehow, those are the ones that keep pulling us back. Because here's the thing. Lost civilizations aren't just ruins in the sand. They are mirrors. They show us how fragile power can be, how temporary glory really is, and how every society, no matter how brilliant, can fall asleep at the wheel. Today, we're walking into the world's most history books never taught you. Empires that rose, ruled, and fell, leaving behind breadcrumbs for anyone curious enough to look. And maybe, as we walk through their stories, you'll notice something else. Something much closer to your own life than you expect. So settle in. This one will stay with you. There's something haunting about a lost empire. Not because it vanished, but because at one point it was alive. There were children laughing in those streets, markets buzzing with traders, kings planning the next season, farmers praying for rain, astronomers reading the stars, architects dreaming in stone. Every lost civilization was once full of people who believed their world would last. But history doesn't work that way. It remembers the loud ones. It preserves the lucky ones. And it buries the rest beneath silence, sand, forest, and time. Today, we're following 6 ancient worlds. 6 kingdoms that shaped continents and influenced cultures far beyond their borders. Some ruled for centuries. Others struck the world like lightning and disappeared before anyone understood what happened. But each one holds a lesson about ambition, resilience, innovation, survival, and the quiet dangers of ignoring the warning signs. So, before we dive deep, quick welcome if you're new here. This is History Maker 101, a space where we pull powerful stories from the past and use them to spark something real in the present. Travel, culture, mindset, the lessons people lived through long before us. I'm Michael Tassin, and I try to take history out of the dusty corners and make it feel alive again. Because the truth is, stories like this aren't just about what happened, they are mirrors. They show us what's possible. So if you're someone who loves learning, thinking differently, or just seeing the world with new eyes, you're in the right place. All right, let's get into it. The rise and silence of Aksum. If you wandered through the Ethiopian highlands nearly 2 millennia ago, the air itself would have felt intentional. This was not a kingdom guessing its destiny, it was a civilization that had already rehearsed its greatness for centuries. Aksum stood at the crossroads of continents, where caravans from Africa, ships from Arabia, diplomats from Rome, and merchants from India converged like actors entering a grand stage. But what truly set Aksum apart was its mastery of identity. While many ancient powers borrowed script from neighbors, Aksum carved its own GZ, an indigenous writing system that still breathes in modern Ethiopia. While other kingdoms stamped imitations of foreign currency, Aksum minted gold coins engraved with crowns, crosses, and symbols of sovereignty coins that served as ambassadors, traveling across oceans long before most people ever did. Their architecture told another story. Aksum's monolithic stelae, some rising over 30 meters, weren't built to intimidate. They were built to last. Engineers today debate how these giant stones were carved, transported, and lifted without the machinery of later empires. And yet, for Aksum, it seems to have been just another day at the office. At its height, Aksum was recognized by contemporary writers as equal to Rome, Persia, and Han China. Not because it was loud, but because it was consistent, stable, strategic, confident without being reckless. But Aksum didn't crash, it dimmed. First, the Red Sea trade shifted. New Islamic states rose along the coast, tightening control of key ports. Then climate change crept in. Rainfall patterns faltered, farmland strained, and harvest shrank. Step by step, the empire receded inland. Its once bold inscriptions stopped being carved. Its vibrant trade softened into memory. What remains of Aksum's decline feels eerily human. A reminder that most of life's turning points don't announce themselves with trumpets. They arrive quietly, a subtle change in weather, an overlooked decision, a slow shift in momentum. Aksum teaches us that greatness demands vigilance, that staying on top is harder than getting there, and that sometimes you don't feel the moment you begin fading, which is why you must always keep listening for the whispers. The Nok people, West Africa's mystery makers. Before the rise of famous West African empires, Before gold caravans crossed the Sahara and griots sang the lineages of kings, a far older civilization was crafting something astonishing in the heart of Nigeria. The Nok weren't building pyramids or waging grand wars, they were shaping identity out of clay. Their terracotta sculptures, often discovered accidentally by tin miners, show a civilization with a refined sense of expression. Some figures display hairstyles and ornaments that hint at social rank. Others appear to represent myths, rituals, or ancestors. These weren't casual art projects, they were statements of a worldview. Even more remarkable is the Nok mastery of iron smelting. They were producing iron tools centuries before many societies in the Mediterranean knew what iron could do. This technological leap reshaped farming, hunting, and craftsmanship, hinting at a sophisticated, interconnected community. Yet, the Nok left behind no stone palaces, no clear burial grounds, no grand monuments. What we know is pieced together from fragments literally. Archaeologists study broken pottery, furnace remains, and traces of settlement patterns scattered across hundreds of kilometers. They see evidence of trade, of social structure, of artistic continuity, but not a clear narrative. And then, around 300 AD, traces of the Nok simply thin out. Villages are abandoned. Art disappears. The record dissolves. But disappearance isn't always tragedy. Sometimes it's transition. Their artistic DNA echoes in later West African cultures, from Ives bronze heads to Benin's royal plaques. Their ironworking legacy spread across regions, shaping farming and warfare for centuries. The Nok whisper something powerful. Your work may become immortal even if your name does not. Impact doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with influence that travels quietly across generations. The Indus Valley, the city that shouldn't have existed. Step into the streets of Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa, and you would feel something uncanny, a sense of order no ancient city had any right to possess. Homes aligned to cardinal directions. Buildings standardized like modern city blocks. Wells placed so frequently that nearly every household had access to clean water. Public sanitation so advanced that even some medieval cities couldn't compare. What's even more extraordinary is what you don't find. Palaces, giant temples, royal tombs. The Indus Valley civilization did not revolve around kings, but around communities. Their society seems to have prioritized everyday life comfort, cleanliness, efficiency in a way that feels thousands of years ahead. Their script, carved on seals and pottery, remains unreadable. But the seals themselves reveal trade networks stretching from Mesopotamia to Central Asia. They were exporting cotton textiles, beads, ceramics, and importing metals and precious stones. The Indus economy was global before globalization existed, and yet their silence is profound. No propaganda, no grand monuments bragging about victories, no records of rulers demanding worship, just cities designed with logic, fairness, and sustainability. When decline came, it wasn't dramatic. Rivers shifted course, flood patterns changed, agriculture struggled, and bit by bit, people migrated eastward. The cities didn't fall to violence, they simply became unsustainable. But their legacy survives in subtle ways. In standardized brick sizes still used in South Asia. In town planning traditions. In cultural rhythms that echo across the subcontinent. The Indus Valley shows that greatness doesn't need a loud voice. Sometimes it speaks through design, through innovation, through the everyday choices of ordinary people living extraordinary lives. The Khmer Empire, anchor before the fall. To understand the Khmer Empire, picture a civilization that treated the jungle not as an obstacle but as a collaborator. They carved cities from it, redirected rivers through it, turned wetlands into reservoirs the size of lakes. Their hydraulic network was so extensive that satellite today can still trace its outlines. Angkor wasn't just a capital, it was a machine. Water flowed through engineered channels and moats, powering agriculture that fed millions. Temples rose with astronomical precision, each stone aligned to mark solstices or celebrate deities connected to the cosmos. The empire's architecture was a conversation between earth and sky. Their rulers were equally ambitious. They built not just temples, but entire religious landscape cities within cities, ceremonial roads linking sacred sites, reservoirs doubling as spiritual symbols and engineering marvels. And through it all, the Khmer identity evolved, blending Hinduism, Buddhism, and local beliefs into one of the most enduring cultural tapestries in Asia. But such brilliance depended on environmental stability. As droughts intensified and monsoons became unpredictable, their carefully balanced water systems began to break under pressure. Rice fields dried, then flooded. Social tensions rose between elites and working classes. Foreign powers sensed weakness. Internal rivalries turned bitter. The empire didn't vanish overnight. It fragmented authority, shifting from monumental cities to smaller, more flexible communities. Angkor remained spiritually significant, but politically, it became a relic. The Khmer story teaches something universal. Systems that cannot bend will eventually break. Adaptation is not a luxury, it is survival. The kingdom of Kush, when Africa ruled Egypt. South of Egypt, along the banks of the Nile, the kingdom of Kush grew in the shadow of the pyramids and then stepped into the sunlight. For centuries, Kush was Egypt's rival, trading partner, cultural mirror, and sometimes its conqueror. The Kushites built their own pyramids at Meroe, smaller but more numerous, with steeper angles and distinct architectural flair. They crafted a writing system still only partly understood. Their queens, known as Kandakes, were not symbolic consorts but political leaders who commanded armies and negotiated treaties. In some eras, Kush was one of the rare ancient states where women ruled with authority. Then came the boldest chapter, the Kushite conquest of Egypt. Under Pir, Shabaka, and Taharqa, they unified the Nile Valley, restoring temples neglected by previous rulers and reinforcing spiritual traditions that tied Egypt back to its origins. Their dynasty is remembered in ancient texts as one that brought revival, not ruin. But later Egyptian scribes, Greek historians, and early archaeologists often minimize Kush achievements, treating them as imitators rather than innovators. Only in the last century have excavations revealed the truth. Kush was powerful, wealthy, and culturally distinct, not a shadow of Egypt, but a partner in dialogue. Their story is a rallying cry for anyone whose accomplishments have been sidelined. If the world won't record your achievements fairly, record them yourself. Because history remembers those who insist on being remembered. The Maya, a civilization that refused to die. The Maya didn't vanish, but their skyline did. Massive pyramid cities like Tikal, Palenque, and Calakmul became giants swallowed by the rainforest, their stone temples becoming mountains of vines and moss. To early explorers, it looked like abandonment. To archaeologists today, it looks like transformation. Classic Maya kings, obsessed with dynastic glory and monumental architecture, so their political system collapsed as droughts hit, warfare spread, and resources thinned. Large urban centers faltered under pressure, and people moved to smaller, more resilient communities. Yet the culture endured. Maya astronomers continued tracking the movements of Venus and the Moon with astonishing accuracy. Farmers adapted new techniques. Writers preserved knowledge in codices. Traditions evolved rather than disappeared. Today, more than 6 million Maya people speak languages descended from those carved on ancient stele. Their calendars are still used in ceremonies. Their crafts, mathematics, herbal knowledge, and identity remain alive. Civilizations don't always fall, sometimes they shed their skin and keep going. The Maya remind us, survival doesn't require remaining the same. It requires remaining true while learning to change. When you lay these civilizations side by side, Aksum, Nok, Indus, Khmer, Kush, Maya, a single thread connect them like beads on a human timeline. None were perfect. None were immortal, but all were extraordinary. Each rose through innovation, discipline, creativity, connection. Each faded through a mix of climate, conflict, economics, or complacency. And each, in its own way, teaches us something about our own lives. We fall the same way civilization fall gradually, when we ignore the signs. We rise the same way civilizations rise through intention, adaptation, and clarity. The ruins they left behind aren't graves. They are lessons. Lessons about humility. Lessons about resilience. Lessons about listening to change before it becomes unavoidable. Imagine if we applied even a fraction of their wisdom to our careers, our families, our goals. Imagine if we learned not just from their triumphs but from their transitions. Legacy is not what you build at your peak. Legacy is what survives after everything else is stripped away. If this journey through forgotten worlds shifted your perspective, don't let the curiosity end here. History Maker 101 is where the ancient past meets modern insight, where every lost kingdom becomes a mirror for our own lives. We drop new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, exploring hidden empires, untold stories, and the lessons they leave behind. So, subscribe to join the community. Share this video with someone who loves history or storytelling. And comment below which civilization surprised you the most, and which one should we explore next. Let's keep uncovering the world together, one forgotten empire at a time.